All right, so welcome one and all. Welcome to Deathwaves on WGMUradio.com. Today we have a special. This is a special episode of Deathwaves. Why? Because I am talking to one of my favorite death metal bands from my home state of Wisconsin, the one, the only Morta Skuld. I'm talking, and I'm sitting with Dave Gregor. We are gonna be interviewing him in promotion for the upcoming Morta Skuld tour, which starts on October 16th, if I'm not mistaken. Isn't that right, Dave?
That is correct. This Saturday.
Awesome, awesome. So yeah, so last year in the year 2020, they released an album called "Suffer for Nothing." That turned out to be one of my favorite releases of 2020, in my opinion, one of the best
Thank you.
death metal records of 2020. So obviously, I was listening to some other interviews with you, but I just wanted to ask you, how'd the recording process for "Suffer for Nothing" go?
Well, I appreciate the words on that because with everything going on last year, the record, I kind of felt got a little lost, obviously promotion wise, because you can only promote as much as you could on the internet, and of course everybody was doing the same. So, I like I said, I appreciate your words. I feel that record was we really planned a lot for it. The writing process was. Before AJ, a lot of people, I don't know if people know this, but AJ Lewandowski was in the band. He was on Wounds Deeper Than Time. He didn't write anything, right? Yeah. He didn't write anything. I mean, he wrote his bass lines, but he didn't really write any of the tunes. So on Suffer for Nothing, he actually had a process in a couple of the songs and actually was writing riffs with us before he decided to leave the band, which was
Wow.
really weird for us because we're like, whoa. He's starting to write, and then all of a sudden, like, hey, I'm leaving. We're like, okay. And I mean, we parted on good terms, and we still, reach out to him, and he seems to be doing well.
That's great.
As far as the recording goes, we were at that process like everybody else, where like stuff was in the process of getting shut down, businesses were closing, just stuff like that, and so we were lucky enough to enter the studio like right kind of before it happened. We went in with Chris DeJuric from Bell City. A lot of people probably know November's Doom and trying to think some of the other bands. But he's Wrath, so he's
Gotcha.
done quite a few.
Gotcha.
We had worked with him before. I had worked with him before when I was in my prior band, my new metal band. So I had worked with him then.
Okay.
Eric had worked with him when he was in Jungle Rot. So Eric and I were familiar with him, and he's really not that far from us. He's like a half hour. So we thought this might be a really, you don't have to travel much. And he just really wanted to capture the Morta Skuld sound. We did some pre-production, and which I don't know how other bands do it. Everybody's different, but we like to do pre-production as much as we can. So that way when we're in the studio, we're not burning hours. We're not wasting time. It's like we're getting to the track and we're laying the track and we're moving on. So he really liked the pre-production we gave him. He's like, this is what I want. This is exactly what I want on the record, to capture this sound. We're like, okay. We did basically weekends, Saturdays, Sundays was his availability. So I think that went on from maybe March. I think it was most of March into probably most of April. So he probably did, 6-7 weekends. But getting back to, I'm getting a little off time, but getting back to the writing, you want to know about the writing process or recording process?
So recording process, and I was actually going to ask you about the writing process because the one thing I wanted to say was like this album, like the one thing I noticed personally compared to like Wounds Deeper Than Time and like your previous releases, it's way faster and a lot more brutal. Like was there like that's what I noticed a lot. Like there's a lot more blasting, there's way more thrash beats, and there's a lot more bomb blasts too. What inspired you to go a little bit faster on this record compared to Wounds Deeper Than Time?
I don't think there was really anything intentional. I think it just kind of
Okay.
naturally happened.
Okay.
When John had finally joined the band, we had a few tunes written, and John was like, "Wow, these songs are really aggressive." And that
Okay.
was all John had to really say was these songs are really aggressive. And I was like, "Oh, okay." So, and I knew they were faster. I really, the weird thing is if you listen to Eric on Jungle Rot and you listen to him on Morta Skuld, Morta Skuld is that is Eric. That is how he sounds. That is how he plays. That is his style. So I just think it was just a natural thing to go faster, and Eric likes to experiment with blast beats and different tempos and formats, and so I really think I just think it was just a natural progression. I don't think we really planned on it. I thought it turned out really well, especially as the songs were starting to come along. We were starting to develop stuff. I was like, oh, okay, this is going to be a little bit of a faster record, which, it could be good, it could be bad, depending on what you like.
Yeah. Well, I tend to lean more towards the faster side of things, so I appreciated that more. Cool. One thing I also wanted to ask you, because like I forget which song it is. I believe it's the third song off of it. You guys have like a noise, like a noise or like a noise sample inside it. Any inspiration for that? And one of the songs has like a sample.
Oh yeah, Divide the Soulless.
Yeah,
Divide
yeah.
the Soulless. Yeah, that little yeah. Yeah. I when we were in the studio and we were recording that part, I was like, man, I'm hearing something over this. I don't know, but I'm hearing something. And Scott was like, hey man, here's this really weird thing that I found on YouTube that I think might go well with that part. And it was funny. We played it and we just slipped it. It was just like some, it wasn't copyrighted or nothing, so we didn't have to worry about that. It was just some kind of sample somebody made. And it just fit. It we dropped it in and it fit right in the tempo. It fit right with the measure. We were like, wow, we really weren't anticipating it to just drop in and fit that well. So that was really just something I was just like, yeah, I was like, let's break this up a little bit. Let's put something in there. I always like to put a little something. I don't like to overdo it. I'm not going to saturate our record with samples and stuff, but just every once in a while you just throw a little something in there, just like a little extra flavor on the song.
Sure, for sure. So all right. So I want to actually go back to the early days of Morta Skuld right now. And my question to you is this: so how did the name Morta Skuld arise? Like, how did you settle on that name back in the day?
Yeah, I was with a good buddy of mine in a neighboring band, and he was basically, kind of helping me out a little bit. And we had already had we had a complete lineup with a singer. I was never the original singer.
Okay.
And there was a song where we all switched instruments. I don't recollect why we did it. I don't know. I think we were just one of those. We started off as kind of a crossover, kind of like an MOD, SOD kind of type band. So of course, there's a lot of poking fun of yourself or whatever. And I thought maybe that was a song we were just going to poke fun or whatever. So I had switched from guitar to vocals, kind of everybody, and then guitars went to drums, and it was just so we all kind of switched. And we used to always have people over at our jams a lot. And so people would, you kind of, you'd write a song or something and you get more of a vibe off of, is this what, are these people digging this or whatever? So one of my buddies that was there was just like, hey, he goes, I really think you should sing. And I was like, dude, I have no experience singing at all. I barely can play my guitar at that point. So he's like, well, I'll help you out. I'm like, okay. So he really helped out write some lyrics and stuff. And just the name we had at the time really wasn't very death metal. And we thought, well, what are we going to do? So me and him were just sitting around one night and he just had a list of names. And I really don't know how he came up with it, but it was like, whatever, like some really stupid names that probably people would dig today. But I think one was Puss. Okay. I was like, yeah, no, I'm not, Yeah. So when he came to me with the Morta Skuld, I was like, okay, that rings a bell to me. I like the flow of it. I still, when I tell people, Morta Skuld, or skull, or, so I mean, you get all kinds of, people that don't understand the skull at the end. But yeah, that's how he came up with the name. And he was like, yeah, he goes, it's yours. And I was like, cool, and over the years I've discovered some of the different meanings about it. And as a whole, because back then we didn't have internet. So we actually had to go to a college. My Jason's mom was a teacher, not at the college, but she was a teacher and she had access to a college. So one day we went there and we just went to their library and we just started looking through the books and started piecing the meaning together. And it was pretty cool. It was really cool. I mean, those are some really good times. I mean, just very organic, not knowing what you're doing. So the scene was really fun too at that time. So
Gotcha. Well, so let me pull up some. So, here's another question that I have for you. So, in the early '90s, obviously, with Dying Remains, like, I remember, like, in one interview that I was reading with you, you talk about, like, just writing about gory lyrics and how you sort of don't really know what it's like to perform those gory lyrics per se, but
right.
but like, so that being said, so how, like, your do you remember your thought process when writing the lyrics for, like, Dying Remains, the Gory Departure demo, the Prolong the Agony demo at all?
The Gory Departure demo was like a partnership.
Sure.
My buddy Brian from local band Bioaggression at the time was helping me out because they had kind of come into their own about a year or so before, and we were kind of hanging out with them and watching their jams and stuff. And I was like, yeah, so I really like this kind of music. I'd really like to start writing this kind, and so he helped me with the Gory Departure lyrics. So a lot, those obviously weren't mine. And he at the time was writing a lot of the gore stuff, with their first record. So that's how that happened. But then on the second record, Prolong the Agony, Jeff Yeager had joined the band. And Jeff Yeager, very, what's the word I'm looking here for? Very dedicated to his faith, really didn't want to go that route with the lyrics and wanted to be maybe a little more thought-provoking. So Jeff and I kind of bumped heads a lot on that, because I was like, yeah, whatever, who cares? He wanted to write, like I said, a little bit more, well, what if, So the lyrics on Prolong the Agony are written more in a vein of what if, like, if this Prolong the Agony itself is written about crucifixion, not glorifying it, but what would one possibly feel, And so those three songs, I guess you can kind of say are written, what's the word what's like a, point of view,
Yeah.
like what if this was happening to you?
Yeah.
What were the experiences? So that was those two demos. So I kind of had, I guess, co-writers or so speak, or people that were actually doing those lyrics at that time. Once I jumped into Dying Remains, I was kind of on my own, started coming into it a little bit more. Brian did actually, he co-wrote lyrics, I think, for one song off of Dying Remains. Then the rest were written by me. And I think at that point, I just kind of, with sitting with the other two guys and seeing what they were writing and stuff like that, I think I just kind of picked up a little bit, some footnotes, and then just like, okay, I think I can do this. And, like I said, I was real infatuated by the gore stuff because at that time, I mean, you really go back and you look at any release pretty much from 90, I mean, not everything, but even like Death Leprosy.
Yeah.
Chuck started out writing about that.
Yeah.
And then switched gears.
Yep.
So, and I think that's kind of what happened to me too. I was writing about it and then started really, really heavily, really starting to become heavily influenced by what Chuck was doing. I liked what he was doing a lot more, like even production, the guitars were clean. There were solos, the lyrics you could hear, you could understand what he was saying. I like that. That's for me. And sometimes it takes enjoyment out of things too. Cause like for bands, if I can't read their logo, I hate to sound like this. I don't mean anything by I probably won't listen to that band. I like stuff I can read. I like stuff I can understand and see. And like some of the logos I see from some of these bands, I can't even, like, if I just see their logo, I don't even know unless it's like one of those, like the Demlick, like you kind of like that one kind of stands out where you can still see it and it's still, but some of them I can't read them. So the death stuff for me was awesome because I could see everything. I could hear everything. I could digest it. And I just kind of, and throughout my life, I've had a kind of a weird a young adult life, a childhood. I had a lot of family problems and a lot of just personal problems myself growing up, without parents and, stuff of that nature. So it took me a long time, I think, to kind of find things and understand things and come to, grips. And I got married really young, and it was not a very good thing for me to do, and had kids. And, so there's a lot of different things going on. And finally, when I got married real quick, got divorced real quick, and that like really tore me apart. And that's where the Dying Remains stuff kind of came in. And then as I was going through the divorce process, then As Humanity Fades, that kind of really, to me, I wanted to like go to that next level of lyrics and go like, you know what, I'm really going through a lot of stuff here. I'd really like to kind of write about it. And, it's like a therapy. I like to write about it. I'd like to sing about it. So a lot of the songs from As Humanity Fades going forward, even maybe some Dying Remains, a lot of it has to do with my divorce, has to do with my custody battle with both of my kids, a lot of issues with my family, between my mother and I, and just I just wanted to write about it. And a lot of times when you're angry, especially being an angry, like they say, an angry young man for so many years, death metal, I just gravitated towards it. It was just, okay, this is aggressive, this is brutal. And it's almost like a therapy for me too,
Okay.
But yeah, after that, even still to this day, even on Suffer for Nothing, of the lyrics, that whole record was, suffer based, because, I think that's one thing, the one thing I always notice that us as human beings can always relate to, me, you, everybody, is pain and suffering. And, we all go through it. We all go through it some shape or form. And a lot of times I feel like it's put there, it's in place for us to go through it to maybe get to that better part. So
That makes that makes a lot of sense. So I was actually about to. I think you answered this question, but I just wanted to ask you again. What inspired you to play death metal? Like, but I guess you answered that one.
well, it was a culmination of things. I don't know if most people don't know, I was in the Marine Corps right before I started playing music. I went in a little bit late. I was like, I think 19ish or something like that. So I really didn't start playing guitar until I was like 21, 22. And I was just in the Marine Corps, and I was just like really hating it, not really liking it, and just going like, God, I don't want to do, I went in thinking I would do that for the rest of my life, get out at 40, retire, everything would be gravy. And then I was like, yeah, I'm really not digging this. So when my time was done, I literally came out and I just went to our local conservatory of music, and I just started taking like basic rhythm courses. And I think I took like maybe 2 courses, and I just said, forget it. I'm just going to come out write my own material. I never really learned any covers or nothing like that. Sometimes I kind of wish I would have, because sometimes when you learn another composition, it kind of, you kind of start to understand the compositions, and it kind of helps you. So unfortunately, I had to kind of learn on my own. So even still to this day, when you hear a song that I've written or the band's written, it's, you know what I mean? I'm not coming from a place like really schooled. I mean, I have taken lessons on and off throughout the years. But as far as to answer your question, I don't know. I wanted to be a musician. I had gotten Death Leprosy, and I was very influenced by that record. And I was like, wow, this sounds like something I want to do. Because at the time, too, I really wasn't very accomplished as a guitar player or even as a lead player. And so, but I realized that, like, wow, like I'm listening to old Slayer records, and these solos are just off the cuff and whammy this. And so I thought, well, if they can do it, I think I can do it too, Yeah. So that was kind of my basis, my thought process when it came to soloing. I didn't know what I was doing, but I thought, well, it doesn't sound like they know what they're doing either, so who cares,
Yeah.
The Leprosy stuff I felt was a little bit more well thought out as far as their solos and stuff, but there was still a lot of noodling going on. And I said, okay, well, maybe I can harness some of this energy or harness some of this, this idea. And it just, I guess here, the main thing I guess I would say is why I wanted to play death metal was because you're from Wisconsin. Wisconsin is a very big cover band
Yes,
states.
it is. Yes, it is.
So when I was growing up, we had, T.A. Verns, and we had, oh God, I can't think of all the other ones. I'm brain dead right now. But we had all these really cool little clubs, and Realm would play, and we had all these really cool bands, right? We had all these cool bands playing, and I would sneak in. I think I was like maybe 17 or something, 16, 17. I'd sneak into these bars and I'd watch these guys play, and I'm like, this is awesome. This is awesome, And what it was is I noticed though the difference between like what we were doing. We didn't wear spandex. We weren't like just flashy solo guys. It just was none like that. So I felt like I didn't fit in to like the T.A. Verns crowd because it was all about glam and Poison and Motley Crue and stuff. And not that I didn't like those bands, but back in the day, the first Motley Crue I still like. I still think it's a great record, in my opinion. It's very raw.
Gotcha.
But like I just didn't fit in, and I would literally go to those parties with my friends just to hang out with just to get chicks,
Gotcha.
that's where all the chicks went, and I was like, man, I really don't fit in. And we always kind of felt we were always against the grain with this scene, because we'd walk in with our death metal look, and these guys have a glam look, and they're like, well, who are you guys? And we're like, well, we know who you are because we see on MTV, but you don't see what our kind is like because we didn't have that exposure at the time. But it just kind of made me think, well, if I can't, not that I wanted to be in a cover band or any type of hair band, but it just made me think like, well, I'm not like that. It's not my style. I'm more this style, and death metal just kind of, it just called. I just feel like it kind of called me and just said, hey, let's go do this,
Sure, no problem. So obviously, I said it earlier. You guys are set to tour on the 16th, and you're gonna be touring basically like you're doing a cool little round robin of like the Midwest and Northeast and Southeast, and then back to the Midwest. What? So I know you
East
guys
Coast.
East Coast, yes. I know you guys are. Yeah, I know. I don't know. I made it overcomplicated, unfortunately. But
no,
I
you're
know,
okay. You're gonna be a pilot. I get it. You're giving me the exact information. I get
That's
it.
true. You know what? If you have to do it, you have to. But I'm interviewing
Yeah,
right now. I got to take the serious mind off me.
no
But
problem.
but no, I wanted to say so. Like, what can the fans expect from Morta Skuld on this tour in terms? And you don't have to spoil the set list, but what do you think? Give them like. What should they expect from the set list for Morta Skuld on this tour? Because obviously, it's a pandemic. Everyone is hungry. You are hungry to play the new songs. I am honestly hungry to hear them because I really love the new record.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
You know what? It's like anything else. It's always tough because we've got 6 albums to choose from.
Yeah.
Some of the records we like for all eternity, we really don't play anything off of. We did learn an As Humanity Fades song, but then for some reason things got lost in the mix. But we'll play that out in the future. But as far as this tour goes, there's a really nice mix of Wounds Deeper Than Time, Suffer for Nothing, and Dying Remains.
Okay.
And of course, we always throw in Killing Machines because everybody likes that off the surface, so I just throw that in. But like, it's a real nice mix. It's not real too heavy on one record or the other. I think there's like I think we're playing 4. Let me think. 4 new songs. Yeah, 4. Yeah, 4 new songs. Playing a couple, and then I said you were playing a couple off of Wounds, and then we'll play one off of Suffer or Surface, and then Dying Remains. We learned a new one off of that one, so that was pretty exciting. I know we've always played Presumed, and we've always played Scarred, and
nice.
So this time we decided to change it up a little bit, and we learned a new song off of the Dying Remains record, which we've been playing live. And going over quite well. So, like I said, for us, I've always said this part, we're a live band. So, we're just going to bring it as much as we can every night, give our 110%. And hopefully people like what they hear. I will say this much. The one thing I did hear off of our last show, we just played Ohio last week. Yeah, great. Yeah, it was a pretty good show. And the sound guy had come up to us at the end and said, man, he's like, you guys were so easy to mix. And I was like, oh, yeah. I'm like, why is that? And he goes, you guys are just dialed in. He goes, your tones, you're just dialed in. And so I heard that once or twice from the couple live shows we played in the past, like 6 months. So that makes me feel good. I'm rocking a new rig that I've been playing, so I was a little nervous that it wasn't gonna work real well with Morta Skuld sound, but no, we got everything dialed in real nice. You know, John's got a lot of new equipment. I've got some new equipment. Just really trying to dial it in. So I mean, you know, I just hope they you know, I guess what they can expect is nothing more than a Morta Skuld show, and you know, we're gonna, you know, play about an hour, and hopefully everybody digs, you know, what they hear. And like I said, I think we've got it worked out pretty good. Like I said, we played this same set the last couple of shows, and it seems to flow well, and it seems to get the juices pumping. So
right on.
I noticed a real big influx in the middle of the set, kind of like people were starting to like really, you know, start pits and stuff like that. So probably the arrangements of the songs too, but yeah, I think it's just going to be a really good show. You know, like I said, we're just going to be as energetic as we can, and just, you know, really to me, it's about the music. You know, it's not always even about banging your head. Sometimes it's about listening to the music and getting lost in that journey.
Yes.
You know, like when Death to All first started, that very first tour, Morta Skuld was lucky enough to play the House of Blues in Chicago. And at that time, we weren't doing. It was a totally different lineup. It was the demo lineup, and we were playing all demo songs. And people wanted to hear album songs, and I just remember going, "Man, we really got to go forward with this." But my point is, when I say get lost in the music, when the Death to All came out, you know, I wasn't really focused on, well, Chuck's not here or whatever, but I just focused on the music, and like they executed it so perfect that I felt like I went back to like 1991 for like 5 minutes.
Nice.
And that's kind of what I'm really hoping to achieve with fans, you know, with the new record, is like, just, you know, get into it, listen to it, embrace it. You know, it's like you said, I mean, and we, all the guys in the band all feel too, that we feel that Suffer for Nothing is just, it's a really good, solid record. There's just there's a lot of good stuff on there, and it now hold on here. Oh, sorry, I got a little alert on my side here. But yeah, I just think it's a really good record, and even the artwork, everything just, you know, just kind of came in, just kind of clicked real well.
That's awesome. So actually, considering, you know, Suffer for Nothing, Wounds Deeper Than Time, and the previous Morta Skuld releases, like, to me, there is a noticeable evolution with the career of Morta Skuld and with your own songwriting. Describe that to me in your own words. Like how would you describe the evolution of Morta Skuld over the years, like from the original run to the reunion?
You mean as far as like writing, or just overall?
Like I'd say songwriting and then overall.
Okay. Well, you know, when we first started out, you know, like I said, we were all pretty, you know, as far as the demos go, we were very naive. And, you know, with Jeff had been in and out of Viogression already. He had drummed for many other bands, so he was pretty seasoned. So I think I think the key for us at that time was getting a seasoned drummer in the mix. And when Jeff left the band and Kent came in, Kent had already played with several bands in high school and all that good stuff. And he was a very, very fluent drummer. Like, he was just very, very, very solid. And I remember when he tried to join the band, he called me several times, and I like, no, sorry, I'm not, no. Because he was in a thrash band at the time, and I was like, we're not a thrash band, it's not going to work. And he's like, dude, trust me, I can play Obituary, I can play all that stuff. I'm like, all right. Matter of fact, he auditioned, I think, playing an Obituary song. So getting him into the fold definitely kind of raised the bar a little bit. And then, you know, Jason O'Connell, even though he wasn't, how can I say this? He wasn't seasoned, but as far as his playing, he was seasoned. He wasn't seasoned as far as a musician and traveling, but just as his playing, he was real seasoned. So it really wasn't hard working him in to the fold as well. And then when we got all four of us kind of firing on all cylinders, then we're starting to write Dying Remain stuff. And the Dying Remain stuff was written really old-fashioned. Just four of us in Jay's mom's basement, and just throwing riffs off each other, you know, just seeing what's going to stick, what's not going to stick. You know, revisiting songs sometimes, like, I still don't like this riff, or I don't like this. But it was very basic, you know, just the very first four records were just like that. just guys in a basement, just riff back, and just stuff like that. I don't think anybody wrote an entire song. I don't think anybody. It was just really pretty much bits. I mean, one guy might have more of a lead. Like, hey, he wrote maybe 2/3 or 3/4 or whatever the riff or of the song, stuff like that. But for the most part, I remember like on Dying Remains, it was pretty much back and forth. It was like I'd write a riff, and then Jay would write a riff, and then Jay would write a riff, and then we would kind of go around. After Surface, things kind of changed because obviously the band broke up for many years, and I went off and started a different band, and that whole writing process is what it was. But then once we came back in the fold with Morta Skuld, when we were doing the demo songs in 2011, I started going like, hey, maybe we should start, venturing off and start learning some Dying Remains songs. And Jeff, he had some health issues at that time, and it was really preventing him from like stamina wise. So we really didn't get a chance to do much except for play the original demo songs with him. And then when he left the band and Eric joined, it was kind of the same thing. Like for Serving Two Masters, it was pretty much the same thing. It was 4 dudes. We're in a basement. We're kind of trading riffs off, and after that, leading up to Wounds, Jason was starting to kind of get into more of composing and excuse me, more composing and stuff. So he started kind of like writing full, complete songs, and I felt like that was kind of like the beginning of the end for him in this band, because we never wrote like that before. We never did. It was always kind of a cumulative or a cumulative aspect. We all shared, and maybe one guy didn't write anything but still added, hey, I want to do this here, any idea, whatever. When you're writing a song with 4 guys and anybody has an idea, that still adds to the end creativity of the song. So when Jason started bringing these whole songs to me, I was just really like, man, I just started kind of shutting down. Like I didn't really want to write much. I didn't want to do much because I kind of felt like he was trying to kind of maybe, I guess, so to speak, take the writing over. And I didn't appreciate that. And he had some personal stuff going on in his life at the time. I mean, we all do. So it was kind of time for him to go. And then once he left, we had started writing some of the Wounds Deeper Than Time stuff with him. So I think there's like maybe 4 songs or something like that he had a hand. Like My Weakness was one. It was my song, but he, helped with some rearranging and transposing and stuff like that. And I just noticed that once he had left, we still had these songs, and I started becoming more creative and started to write a lot more now. And most of the songs, let me think. Yeah, I'd say the songs on Wounds Deeper Than Time are the same, pretty much, worked out between people in a rehearsal space. Once AJ joined the band and things started becoming a little different, AJ's a little more tech savvy than most of us. So, I mean, his YouTube channel, and, he'd tab out all this stuff, and I'd be like, wow, like shit, this guy was this guy was a whole nother, he was a very, very talented guy.
Yeah.
So we started kind of doing things a little differently once he joined. And he didn't really per se, like I said, write much. I mean, his bass lines, obviously he wrote. And then it kind of started getting into the thing where he was working a lot. He wanted to go back to school, so he wasn't available much. And we'd maybe see him like once a month or something. So then the rest of us would have to kind of, so like we were writing a song and he wasn't there, we'd send it to him, and then he'd put his bass parts over it. And then he might say, hey, this part, can we try this here or try that there? So that's where I think it started really kind of getting into a different way of writing for us at that point, especially with technology. And 2 of the guys in the band are from North Manitowoc and Appleton.
Gotcha.
So not real close. It's really hard. Back in the day when we first started writing, we were playing 4 days a week. We were practicing 4 days a week, and that probably went on for probably, I don't know, 8 years. And then now that, it seems like just times have changed. Back in the day, I think bands practice like every day. Now bands are like, hey, once a week, once a month, depending on the type of band you're in. So for Suffer for Nothing was definitely written a little different. Like Machines of Hate, that was pretty much a song that Scott brought to the table. It was pretty much, I think it was almost fully mapped out, and the ending wasn't real. The ending wasn't real, like conducive. It wasn't like finished, so I helped finish the end of that. But like that song was his. He brought that to us, in a recording in a demo fashion. And then since we weren't able to get together more than once a week, I started doing the same. So I started writing like, half songs, 3/4 songs. And then I would just bring it into the band and we'd all jam with it and we'd do what we wanted. And then maybe the band would say, hey, we're going to let's put this at the end, or, you know what I mean? So the writing has changed over the years. Even like John, he just got a, what do you call it? Interface. So he wants to start recording his riffs, and then send them over and this and that. So, I like to think we kind of have a little bit of both. I mean, when all four of us do get together, we obviously have to learn the song. We obviously have to show, each other parts and stuff like that. So it still has that human feel. But unfortunately with the distancing and, and then of course last year, even in the studio, even when we were in the studio, it was like we had to be really quiet about what we were doing because, businesses were getting shut down left and right. And we were like, hey, we really want to make this record. So the writing process, and even now the writing process, we've got like 4 songs that we're writing and or that we have finished. And those songs are like, that was my approach with those 2. I'd write as much of a song as I could write. And then I would bring it to the practice and say, hey, how far do we want to go? Do we want to put this? Do we want to do that? And then we would kind of make a solid decision on what the song was going to be, and then we move on to the next song. And that's kind of how we're doing it now a little bit. Guys are recording riffs. I record on my phone all the time. And I'll send the guys, hey, here's a song idea I have. What do you think? What do you want to change? Unfortunately with I think the older we get too, I think back in the day it was like we rehearsed 4 days a week. I think now it's just different. Everybody's pretty well seasoned and everybody knows their instrument pretty well. So, it's not like we have to. I mean, I think if the other 2 guys were closer, we would probably, rehearse a little more. But I think for the time that we have, we definitely make it productive. And obviously, like I said, Suffer for Nothing, we made it work. And I'm very proud of that record.
You should be. That record is awesome. So obviously I know you've been talking about Chuck from Death a lot, and I know throughout the interview you've also mentioned Obituary, but what would you say who would you say are your vocal influences? Like give me a list, and if you have any reasons why would those people be your vocal influences for Morta Skuld?
Sure. Well, I would have to say when I first started out, I would have to say my influence was definitely John Tardy. He just, man, I don't know. I heard after the first record, I was like, wow. Like slowly we rot was like, holy crap. Like, and then when we got into Cause of Death, I was like, oh, geez, like this just is, I like John Tardy. I didn't like how he didn't pronounce. Like, if you notice the last 2 records, he pronounces a lot more now, which I like.
Yes.
But back in the day, it was just like, blah, blah,
Yeah.
And that was the only part I didn't like. Okay. And the only reason why is because I wanted Morta Skuld to be an audible band. Okay. Because I get very offended when people that don't know the genre are like, oh, they sound like Cookie Monster and this and that. And I'm like, there is so much more to doing the vocal style that death metal, vocalists do than people really realize. So he was my first influence, and I think you can kind of hear that on like Dying Remains a lot. And then honestly, Chuck was at the same time, Chuck was a big influence as well. I think for me with the audible part, that was my influence that I took away from Chuck. Yeah. And then when we were doing As Humanity Fades, honestly, man, Frank from Suffocation kind of came into my mind for some reason on that record. I love Frank. We don't talk anymore, unfortunately. I wish we did, but I remember having a lot of fond memories of, in the early days, Morta Skuld supported Suffocation quite a few times. Matter of fact, a Metal Fest. I don't know which Metal Fest it is. I got the lanyards hanging over there, and I count them. I think there's like 8. So I know we've done at least 8 Metal Fests. I'm sure you're probably there.
Sorry to cut you off, but that's before I was even alive.
Was it? I'm sorry. I keep forgetting you're that young.
Yeah, because a lot of the Metal Fests you played, Morta Skuld, I remember you were telling me you've played almost all of them, but I was born in '97, so a lot of those Metal Fests were.
Oh, you're already done. My fault.
You're good. You're good. You're good. Keep going.
So and I remember the one fond memory I have of Frank, because him and I want to say, I think we either got married at the same. No, I don't know about the marriage thing, but we both had our first kid at the same time. So I remember that, because him and I would talk about it. So we're at Metal Fest. I don't know if it was 7, 8. Now I don't know which one it was. I just remember that year they played below us, and I was like, "What? This is weird, man." They've toured. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to degrade my band or nothing, but those dudes are they're pioneers of the music. And, they've been doing it for so long, and, regardless, they're definitely one of those bands that, are held in very high regard. And, they play before us. And as they're done, Frank's like, "Yeah, man, dude, kill it, this and that, blah, 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 and this and that." I go, "Really, dude?" I said, "How the hell are we supposed to follow that?" I said, "Are you kidding me?" And he chuckles and, kind of walks away and whatever. So, but yeah, I would have to say he was definitely an influence on me as well. And then, I think I'm out of, I don't know. Right now I'm in my 50s. I've been doing this for 30 years. I don't really know if I have per se anybody that's really influenced me at this point, because I really feel like I've
evolved into your own.
Right, years ago. But yeah. I have heard, this is what I've heard, and I'll take it all day long. But a lot of people say that after seeing me live or listening to Stuff for Nothing, they hear like a Max Cavalera style out of me. And I'm like, oh, cool. That's cool,
I hear that. No, I hear that
really?
As well.
Okay.
Yeah, I can actually
I don't, but that's because I'm so close to it. But I want to probably say that's probably getting older. Your voice does somewhat change. Even I was watching that short video from Obituary the other day, them advertising their new song and the streaming and all that. And I was listening to his voice, and I'm like, I know it's probably a demo, not studio, but I was like, okay, you can hear a little difference in his voice too now that he's getting older. It just happens. It's natural. Yeah. But as far as people comparing me to Max Cavalera, I'll take that all day of the week. So
yeah, not a bad comparison to have. Seriously.
No, it could have been much worse.
Yeah. Well, so
yeah,
all right.
Those are my 3. Those I'd probably say. I might even earlier in the demos, I might even throw in a little Nick Holmes from Paradise Lost, probably.
Okay. Right on. Because I know, obviously you guys are label mates with those guys on Peaceville, even in the early days, which is cool. So let's see. Let me see what questions I have for you guys. So actually, I got a great one, because you talked about Slayer, so we'll go to that. When you guys on Surface, when you guys were on Surface and that was on Pavement, I know you guys played with Slayer in the late '90s. What was that experience like?
Yeah. It was like 97, 98, and that was right. And literally the band was kind of on the verge of breaking up at that point. So the story goes is we were supposed to go out on tour, and I know Jack Koshik.
Yep, Jack Koshik, Milwaukee Metal Fest.
Yep, and a lot of people, whatever, they can say what they say about him, but he's never done anything wrong to me. So I love Jack. He's a staple of Wisconsin and Milwaukee. So at the time, he was doing the Milwaukee Metal Fest, which I feel are and were legendary. And
they are.
Right. And he came to me and he just said, hey, he's like, he was always trying to, every time we would open for a band in Milwaukee, most of the times it was due to Jack. It was Jack's show. He'd say, hey, I'm going to put you on. And really, I think that's what really catapulted the popularity of the band throughout the years, was him getting us on the high profile shows. So instead of playing the 40, 50 people, we're playing the, 800, 900, 1,000, 15, whatever. I think Slayer was like right around 3,000 or so people. It was at that time, it was an experience, because, you're working with a pro band. I mean, very pro band, legendary band. And I remember Jack saying, like, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to put you on a tour, and you're going to support 6 Feet Under, and I can't remember the other band. It was like two really and Master. So like Master's going to be in Florida, and 6 Feet Under is going to be here, and you're going to support them. But your first show is going to be supporting Slayer. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, even paid us for it too. Like, that was even the bonus. We're like, wow, we're getting paid for this? This is even better. So the experience with that was, the stage manager came right up to us and said, hey, here's the deal. He goes, if you guys, I need you set up in 10 minutes or less. If you can't set up in 10 minutes or less, I'm going to start taking minutes off your set list. That's how it goes. Your time starts now. Click, go. It was just like that. I was like, oh, wow. And we weren't used to working, with, major tour act. Like, we supported Cannibal Corpse. We supported Obituary, Autopsy, all those bands. But I think, was a little bit more laid back. And this guy was like right on serious, like, dude, get your stuff together or get out. So we, being a band that, was together for 8 years already, kind of, we had our stuff together. So we hurried up, we set up in like 8 minutes. And the guy was like, cool, I'm giving you an extra 2 minutes for your set. And we're like, oh, cool, So, we played our set, went on, had a really great response. I met with the, I met all the dudes in Slayer at that time.
Oh, that is sick.
Yeah, but I wasn't like in tune. Like, I don't know, man. My mind was somewhere else. So I really wasn't in tune. So I really didn't like Tom. Like, Tom was really nice, and I know Jeff was really nice. Kerry was probably not really the nicest out of all the guys, to be honest. And I met him like once or twice. I've been like, I think twice already, and both times, yeah, I just like, well, to each their own. I love the band. I like, even the last record, Repentless, I think was done very well. I know a lot of people give Kerry flack for not being a good guitar player or whatever, but I don't know. I'm listening to the tunes and I think they sound great. So, my hat's off to him. Yeah. My hat's off to him writing that record without another guitar player. Yeah. Yeah. Because myself, I love writing with another guitar player and spitting ideas like off of Scott all the time. So not have that. And I guess I would kind of say that's probably what I experienced with these first couple of songs that we wrote last year for Morta Skuld. It was written more from a one guitar player standpoint, meaning mine. So it'll be interesting to see once we revisit those songs and, Scott puts his touches on them, what they're going to be like. But getting back to the Slayer thing, yeah, it was a really good experience. Just everything was right on. It just so happens that the next day or two we were supposed to play in Florida, and Kent, our drummer, supposedly came down with some illness. He was sick, and he just refused to play, and that kind of just like ruined the whole tour. It was like over before we even knew it, and we took him to the hospital, and the doctors were like, well, he's dehydrated, so they gave him a couple bags of saline, said he should be fine. He just didn't really have an interest in continuing. So we obviously cut the tour, which we never did. Even though we traveled to Florida, we're sitting in Florida. There's 20 people there saying, play one song. And he's just like, no. So we ended up going home. And at that point, that's when everything kind of fell apart. Jack was like, hey, if you guys can't complete a tour, I'm not going to work with you. We got a letter from the label, like, hey, we're dropping you. So, it really had a really big impact on all of us, especially me at that time, since I had been running the band, since day one, and pretty much my conception from day one. It was brutal. I hated it. It was awful. And we came home, and after we came home, we had still worked with Kent for a little bit. We played. I think we played like 3 shows too. I think we played like with Immolation. Oh man, who else? I'm trying to think. Crap, I can't remember. Immolation was one I remember because I was in Illinois, and that was such a good show. So I remember playing with a couple bands, and then he just, he decided to quit. He just wanted to be a family man, and that kind of took the band to the end because at that time people were, wanting to play Nirvana and
grunge was probably big in the late 90s.
You know what? I thought that too, but it was actually early. It was mid, like 1995 was when it kind of started.
Yeah.
Because I remember right after As Humanity Fades, like we were doing really well. The sales were really good for Dying Remains, and As Humanity Fades was doing real good. And then we did For All Eternity, and it went nowhere. And like we went into this huge debt with the record label, like 10 grand. We owed them like 10 grand for this record. And at that point, nobody was really buying death metal at that point. So For All Eternity came out and literally just sat on the shelf. And then that was it. Yeah, then that was it. And then that's why we did Surface kind of on our own, and then Pavement came and picked it up, and then of course the tour fiasco, and and unfortunately with the tour, I shouldn't say I think, but I know that did hurt the band. It really hurt the band for when we started coming back in 2011, 2012. And then when we finally went on a tour in 2017, and you and I had met for the first time, that was our first real tour ever. And it was a totally different lineup.
Gotcha.
And, and now I look back and I go, wow, we did that. We did a mini tour at Skeletal Remains, some weekend runs in the West Coast. We did a small California run, and then we did more Seattle and Washington. So, yeah, I mean, it's been very fortunate for us to be able to do that. And I think that has really helped us kind of come back from the 1998 fiasco.
Yeah.
I mean, we still work really hard, and it's just a constant thing I work at.
That's awesome. Well, I know you said you have an hour or a little over an hour, but I just
you can keep going. You can keep going. You're good.
Keep going. Cool.
I'll let you know.
Cool. I wanted to ask. So I know Morta Skuld finally in 2019, you finally made your way over to Europe, and you guys are set to go back to Europe once this is all said and done. So, what was it like playing Europe? Describe it, because
you've been. I know you've probably been to more shows overseas than I have.
No, I haven't. Only once.
No?
Only once.
Okay.
Brutal Assault was the only one I've done.
Okay, but you've traveled overseas probably more than I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So, yeah, I think I've seen you do some adventuring. Like, was it more like Asia somewhere, wasn't it?
Japan. I've been to Japan. And
my
my home country of India, but that's because I'm Indian.
No, there's nothing wrong with that. You got to visit the homeland,
Of course.
I was stationed in Japan when I was a Marine.
Nice.
And unfortunately, I've never had the opportunity to play there. But if anybody ever brought us, I would love it. I think it would be a great experience. But getting to Europe, man, Europe was amazing, humbling, and just incredible. Just incredible. I can't thank the Netherlands Death Fest enough for bringing us. It was an amazing, such a well-run festival. I mean, we literally, I don't know how to say this, but I felt like for like one of the first times I was treated like an actual recording artist, like it meant something. Because even when you go on tour, sometimes depending on the size of the tour, there's like, we're putting on a show, who cares, but these guys really did a great job. I mean, you have your own green room, and you have, hospitality, and, they pick you up from the airport, and it was just, the hotel was amazing. It was so close to the venue, and the venue was awesome. And no, I had an amazing time. A lot of people, it kind of looping back to what you were saying about the Slayer experience. This took that experience and
wow.
The Netherlands experience is still right now my top Like it was amazing. I mean, we went there. We were hanging out with other bands that we've known for a long time, bands that I've been friends with for a while. Just stuff like that. It was really good to hang out, see the different bands. I got to see Unleashed, and I'm trying to think. I can't even think of the other bands because, like I said, a little brain dead here. But like it was just super fun, and even the touring, just like getting out in the streets and just walking around and taking the culture in, and it was just so cool. And we're ready to play, and we're on stage, and they had 2 stages, so one would be playing while the other guys are getting set up, and we're getting set up, and I'm not even looking in the back, I'm not even looking at the crowd, I'm not paying attention. And I'm just sitting here and I'm dialing in my amp, and I'm just like, and I just happen to make a little guitar noise, and like from behind me, this whole like crowd, and I'm like, and I look back and I'm like, holy crap, there's like 1,000 people just standing there. You know what I mean? Just waiting. And I was like, man, that really humbled me. And when we busted into Without Sin, like people were just like, it was just very humbling. Like I said, there were people that were thanking us for coming to play, and we've been waiting 30 years to see you, and I got and the tour that you saw us on too. Yeah. There were a lot of people like, hey man, we've been waiting 30 years to see you, and so it was very, very humbling. It was such a great experience, and I mean the sound was great, the equipment was great. And then afterwards we're kind of hanging out in the hallways, and people are just like kind of I wouldn't say swarming us, but like, hey, everybody wanted pictures, and like we just for probably like an hour and a half, like we couldn't really go anywhere in the building because everybody was like wanting pictures or talking or let's have a beer together, and it was just a great experience. It really showed me that our European fans are that amazing, and they were just very grateful and hungry to see the band play. So.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. And I'm assuming have you been able to meet any of like the like I know you were in correspondence with a lot of death metal guys back in the day. Were you like especially with the guys in Europe, were you able to meet any of those guys when you were in Europe? Like I know one interview you said you were in contact with Carl Willits for a while too.
Yeah. Man, I am so hoping that next year happens because they're on the same day that we're playing, I think, the UK Fest.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, because I have a picture of us that I posted quite a few times on my page or whatever of him and I from like 91 maybe or something like that, or 92. Gotcha. And it was one of those fluke things where they were playing some little town, Sheboygan, they're at the Croatian Hall.
Wow.
Which was huge back in the day.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we would play there with like Realm and like Rabid Captor or who else, a Morbid Saint, and there'd be like 400 people, just like 400 people, just like not like 400. Now it's like I feel like you have to sell your soul to get 400 people,
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the last time I ever really ran into the guy, because we obviously know both didn't play in the States too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, him and I are friends on Facebook. We chat a little bit here and there, but I know he's got a lot of people that probably come at him, so we don't really chat as much as I'd like. But no, the only other person I really met that I was somewhat friends with back in the day was Shane Embry.
Okay.
So him and I, hey, I know you don't know. No, you're Morta Skuld, I know, so he knows, so it's just, him. And then I met Chris Canella, which is the not new anymore, but he, I think he took Jack Owen's place for guitar player and Deicide. So I actually met him over there, which was awesome. He's a really great guy, and I've really enjoyed supporting them and when we can, when they come through. Other than that, no, I really didn't get a chance to meet. I know when we did Czech Republic, I think it was the guys in God the Throne. I think that we were hanging out with them, and Benediction. So I did get to meet a few more people that like, hey, I remember you from back in the day. I mean, not a lot, but a few. So I'm really hoping that this next year, I get to meet a lot more people, especially Carl. That would be like a really big thing for me because he was, I probably should have mentioned that, but he was another vocal influence on me, lyrically too. I always liked his lyrics, and I always kind of got some influence off of that. So I think the Memoriam records are really good. I like every one of them. I'm just, I even wrote him, I said, I'm just shocked that you guys can write so quick. You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
one album per year, dude, like that's just, I mean, I don't have a job right now, but even if I did have a job, I can't see writing a whole record that quick. But so my hat's off to them. But yeah, those are the dudes I met, and Carl's he's a really nice guy.
Right on. So here's a question. I'm hoping you can ramble on as much as you can on this one. So in terms of the overall grand scheme of death metal, where in the overall picture of death metal, where do you see Morta Skuld's place in the overall picture of death metal?
Wow, that's a really good question, man. You know, I get the term, and this is something my buddy and I were just talking about the other day, the legendary term. Like, where does this come into play? And you know, who, you know what I mean? You know, we get it once in a while. It's like, you know, Legends, Morta Skuld, and it's not a title that's taken lightly. It really isn't for me. When I think of Legends, I think, you know, Slayer and Exodus and, you know, Anthrax, and those are kind of legendary bands to me. As far as our place, you know, I wish we were a little further along in the game. I'm not going to lie. You know, I wish we had management and we had big tours being booked for us and stuff. That's kind of the goal, I think, of what we're shooting for. Obviously we're not to that level yet, but we're working towards it. But I always consider Morta Skuld a second generation death metal band. Just because your first gen bands, you know, Obituary, Death, Morbid Angel, Suffocation, almost Entombed, almost all of those bands, at least by the time Dying Remains came out, they all had at least one. And I think Obituary actually had 2 records out already at that point. Yeah. And I think Death had 3, maybe 4. Yeah. So going in those terms, I kind of felt like the band was, I feel like Morta Skuld was kind of born, created, kind of, you know, like 89 is when I started having the concept. We didn't have nothing out obviously until 90. But a lot of these other bands were around 87, you know, 86, 87, 88. I already had demos out. So I kind of feel like we weren't necessarily the first gen, but we were the second generation. And I kind of feel like that's a really important thing, because I feel like a lot of the second gen bands I feel like we all made an impact as well. You know, you got us and you got Broken Hope and, you know, Oppressor and, you know, bands like that. And I feel like we were all second generation bands. And I feel like all of us bands too, we at one point we all played together. You know, we had all played together. We know each other. And I really think that was really important, because I really think that helped catapult that second gen, you know, that second kind of generation death metal. You know, we all obviously were influenced by our mentors and our, you know, the people that came before us. So you're going to find influences, I think, throughout all the second gen bands. But I'd say, you know, I think that's kind of our place. You know, like I mentioned, Suffocation playing before us. I kind of felt like, and that was one thing that we always kind of had in Wisconsin. Like when Eric Greif was here and he was helping all of bands and stuff, there was like this pecking order, and it was like, you know, boom, 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 and it was all about like who came out first, who's doing this, who's doing that. And that's kind of how I felt with Suffocation. I felt like Suffocation definitely should have played after us. I don't know what it was. I don't know if they had a scheduling thing or maybe they had to leave, you know, who knows. But I do know I thought that was really weird that year. I'm like, yeah, we should have been playing under them. And that's just how I've always kind of run my mentality in a way I think about when I play with bands. Like, well, who are we playing with? You know what I mean? What is their, where, you know, what's their caliber? What's their level? You know, are they bigger than us? Are they more popular than us? You know, I take all that into account, because, you know, obviously you wouldn't take a band that's been on the road maybe more than you, and a band that's got a bigger following, and you would say, hey, you're going to open the show. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, and I always, you know, and, you know, the one thing I will say about Morta Skuld that I am very proud of is everything that we are doing and everything we've done is pretty much on our own. Like, we haven't relied on major tours to, you know, support us and to bring in fans. we're kind of doing it, you know, do it yourself. We still, I mean, you know, Peaceville is behind us, but they don't like, you know, they're not putting us on tour. They're not doing any of that. You know, they help with the production of the record and the distribution of the record and things of that nature. I'm very grateful to be on Peaceville. We have a really good working relationship with them. But as far as everything else goes, yeah, I mean, I don't have a major booking guy. I don't have a major tour guy. It's pretty much all on our own. I mean, we do have help. I don't know if you Mass Destruction Fest, Cody. He's actually he booked this tour that we're going on this week, so he did a great job at that. Evan from California Death Fest, Maryland Death Fest,
Yep.
He actually booked the 2017 tour for us. Which was great. I love Evan. I wish he'd pick up his phone more because I've been wanting to talk to him. Like, hey, let's do some Maryland stuff because I know they kind of settled down now. They're not going to be doing anything overseas anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's just going to be California Death Fest and Maryland Death Fest, I guess, going forward.
Wow. Okay.
From what I read on, yeah, I read something about it. They said this next year was the last Netherlands one. So.
Wow. Okay. That I straight up did not know. Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, let's see. Let's see if I have any more questions to ask you. Actually, well, since you know the 2017 tour was the first tour you guys ever went on, what are your favorite moments from that tour? 2017. What are some good memories or stories or anything from that tour?
You know, the two things that I really enjoyed in that tour was meeting you for one. I really like. I don't meet a lot of unique people like yourself, so I really thought you were very unique, and then not to mention we're you know, from the same state, so that was even better. I was like, wow, what are you doing all the way over here? And then you shared your story with me, and I thought that was really cool, man. I like your energy. I think you're an awesome representative of the younger generation for death metal. You know, the death metal enthusiasts. So I appreciate that because you got to carry the torch. I'd say probably you and probably meeting Frank Rini were probably my two highlights from the tour because I never knew him. And the funny part was I'm talking with Paul from Embalmer and I'm like, oh, dude, is that Frank from Suffocation? Because I haven't seen either one of those dudes in forever. And he's like, no, you know, and so he introduced me to Frank and I just hit it off and like became best buddies. And
Frank
him
from
and I
Eternal Bleeding, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know him. Yeah, we see each other at shows. That's funny. If he sees that I've interviewed you, he'll lose it. He's gonna lose it.
I know. Yeah, he's a great dude, and I always love his enthusiasm too, and but yeah, him and I are like really good friends. Probably better friends than other people I've met in my past before. But we keep in touch, and he's such a great guy. And I actually had him write lyrics. For the Machines of Hate song on Suffer for Nothing, were written by him. So I arranged them. He wrote them. I arranged them. But yeah, I love working with Frank. So probably have him do maybe write another song or something for the next record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's definitely been busy despite not being in Internal Bleeding anymore, but he's definitely kept himself busy. I know he does. I know he actually writes a lot of reviews for his own website too.
Yeah, Teeth of the Divine, absolutely.
Yeah, that's the website.
Yeah, it's really cool because you know back in the day, I remember that's what I wanted to do. I was like, I want to review records. I want to review records, and now I'm going like, I don't know if I'd be a really good reviewer at this point. You know, it's like the older I get, like the less patience I have, you know, to listen to stuff and I don't know. I you know, and it's funny because I know some people, hey, what are you listening to? And they give me your top 5. And I was like, I don't know if I can give you a top 5. I said, because I don't really listen to a lot of new stuff. I've actually really connected more with what I grew up with lately and all the rock stuff. Gotcha. So like, you know, the last Judas Priest, freaking amazing record.
Oh yeah, Firepower ruled.
Yeah, and then the latest Alice Cooper, what is it, Detroit Rock Stories? Yeah. Great record. So I just, and then the Alcatraz that was released a couple of years ago too, Born Again, that was a great record. So I really just been kind of going back to the, you know, I have the new Cannibal. I bought that. I thought that was a really good record too.
Eric
but as far as like,
man.
Eric dude, actually, him and I, when they played Milwaukee for Domination, Morta Skuld supported
for Morbid Angel, right? When Eric was playing in Morbid Angel?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So we supported that show, and that was the first time I ever met him. And he was such a nice guy, like just incredibly nice, incredibly humble. And I know the guy's busy. He's popular. He gets 1,000 emails a day. I'll message him through Facebook every once in a while. It might take him a little bit to get through, but he does answer, and I appreciate that. And him and I just kind of, I'm like, oh man, when you come through a Cannibal, I can't wait to see you guys, and stuff like that. So yeah, he's just I love his style. He's a great player, and definitely influential player for me.
Sure.
But yeah, I listen. I like a lot of the classics, man. I like a lot of the classics. I listen still to all the classic Morbid Angel stuff and Obituary stuff, and every once in a while a new band will pop on my radar, or I'll see somebody. I just don't venture out as much as I used to, I guess. When I was a kid,
Okay.
I felt like I was real hungry, and I ventured out, and I'd be in the record stores looking through the bins and stuff. And obviously the days and times have changed. I even know here in Wisconsin, the only record store we have is Exclusive.
Exclusive is still sick though. Like at least the one in Greenfield has the Metal House, and the Metal House is better than most like metal record stores in like major like high cosmopolitan cities. So you do have that going for you.
Yeah, and I only live 3 miles away from that place. So
yeah, exactly. So it's not that much to complain about. Well, actually, no. I was gonna say like in terms of newer bands, like let's say like I know you guys are touring with Mutilatred, and I know you guys did a run with Skeletal Remains, who are awesome in my opinion.
Sure.
And so like what does like not necessarily to impress you, but what does a younger band have to do to like to win you over per se, for you to go ahead and say, wow, these guys are really good. They're like these young cats, they got a lot going for them right now.
Sure. Yeah, that's a really good. I like that because I can't remember how I stumbled on the Skeletal Remains. I cannot remember for the life of me. I don't know if it was through Facebook or what it was. And I was like, wow, who are these young kids, man? Like, wow, and for me, I'd have to say it's the music. They have to have the music. They have to have the music. And the one thing I think that gravitated me towards them is I feel like they're similar to us. You might have a structure A, B, or you know what I mean? Like we're not, how can I say it? They're just, I just feel like we're real similar bands. And, and I thought that like when we went out on that short run with them, I thought that was a really good opportunity for us to be with another band that's similar to us, because a lot of times, especially in the last couple months, we've been playing with all these other different bands, and none of them have been death metal. And so sometimes I feel like that, can impact your crowd sometimes. And so we do like, not that we don't mind who we play with, but we do prefer to play with death metal bands because we want to stay within that crowd aspect. But those dudes, I stumbled onto them, and I heard, I was listening to, I can't think of the name, the Mortality record. And I was like, wow, this is like really good stuff,
Yeah.
And I know Chris and I have become really good friends.
Nice.
And we talk all the time now. And he's a really big James Murphy fan.
Oh,
and I kind of asked him on the record, I was like, hey man, I was like, some of those solos are sounding some James Murphy. He's like, really, you think so? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, oh, that's so awesome. Thank you. And that's what I was going for. And then I think on this latest record, they did a cover of one of Murphy's band's tunes. I can't remember which one, but Disincarnate song.
Okay.
So I just think it's the songs. It's really the songs. It's like if I can put the record on, and then at the end of the record or CD or tracks or what do you want to say, and I'm like, cool, I want to listen to it again, then I think that's what really gets. That's when I know I'm okay. I'm gonna like these guys, And like I said, it's just a very similar style. He's got a very Martin Van Drunen vocal style to him that I like. And he's just a good guy, and we had a real fun, I think it was like 5 or 6 dates, and we had a real fun run with those guys, and we were hoping to do some more with them. But, I know now that they're on Century Media and stuff, they're, they've got people working for them, and, it might not really be their decision. Sometimes when you get to a certain level, sometimes decisions start becoming somebody else's. We are trying to definitely do something with them next year. We're trying to do a small California run possibly. Okay. But then we're speaking to some other people in California about doing a run and maybe doing a show with Autopsy. So we're still kind of, everything's still kind of in the planning phases, but we definitely want to make it back out to the West Coast. But yeah, as far as that, they just, I don't know. They just really, I don't know what it was. I just thought that their songs just really kind of grabbed me, and I just thought, man, I really like these songs. They're brutal. I like the structure, great soloing, and my girlfriend actually is more of she's a very supportive of the local scene here, and anybody that plays. You know, if she goes to a show, she'll buy their CDs, she'll buy their shirts, and she literally brings home CDs from, I don't know, she'll go to Club G and there might be who knows playing there, and then she'll bring home a bunch of CDs to me, and she'll burn them and stuff, and then she'll put them on her disc and on her stick, and then she'll listen to them. And most of the bands I won't even listen to them. I'm like, it's not grabbing me, this and that. But the fact that she does it, I think, is great, because that's how I did start too. I started a little bit more open-minded, I guess, so to speak. But I know it's just kind of like you get older, and I think you just like to stick to your classics. And
yeah,
the fact that I think that a lot of the rock guys like Alice Cooper are still plugging along, and Judas Priest, just stuff I grew up with. I mean, I grew up with, Stained Class and Defenders of the Faith and Screaming for Vengeance and, all that, was it Billion Dollar Babies and what is that? I can't think, Flush. I was a big fan of Alice Cooper's new wave stuff, like Flush the Fashion, Special Forces.
Okay.
That stuff I liked. And then when he came out and did Brutal Planet, I was like, oh my gosh. Because to me, Brutal Planet kind of sounded like a cross between like Marilyn Manson meets Alice Cooper.
Yeah.
Like the guitars reminded me of very Manson-ish. And then you had Alice Cooper. And but I mean, you wouldn't have Marilyn Manson without Alice Cooper. You just wouldn't.
Yeah, of course.
So those types of, that's kind of stuff I've really been getting into, and just like, just doing the old school. I mean, God, I remember in high school it was Foreigner, Journey, Styx. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
38 Special. All those bands. So
all the arena rock and whatnot.
Oh, God, yeah. And that was really important at that time when I was in school. Everybody was walking through the hallways with, you either had a Foreigner shirt, a Styx shirt, a Journey shirt, or a Sabbath shirt. Those are like the four shirts you would see in the hallway daily.
Okay.
And I always thought that was so cool. I wasn't a big fan of high school, but that was a really good time for me because I was starting. Weird story, I was looking through my high school yearbook the other day. I have not looked at that thing since probably high school, no lie. And that probably 35, 40 years, whatever it was. So I opened a book and I'm reading people's comments, and it really blew me away because obviously at that time I was telling people I wanted to be a musician even at that time, because people are like, hey, you're going to be a big star, or, hey, you're going to make it, and hey, rock on, I wish you luck with your band. And I didn't have a band at the time. So I just looked back at that and I was like, oh, it's kind of, I guess, making your own reality, I guess.
Yeah. Just making, literally, as you said, making your own reality. Well, let's see. What other questions do I have? Oh, actually, another good question, because obviously, since you said you work with Jack Koshik and you have all these Milwaukee Metal Fest lanyards, share me a funny Milwaukee Metal Fest story. Not one that you were like, wow, I can't believe we're playing this, or man, this was not a good experience. Share me one that just makes you laugh whenever you think about it.
Oh, man.
Let's go deep into the David Gregor archives.
Jeez, I don't know. My brain's pretty dead over the year. Too much drinking. The one thing I will say this much. I don't know if it's a funny story, but it was whenever there was a metal fest, Jack always booked at the same hotel. Always booked the same hotel. So I knew where everybody would be staying. Okay, so I would run down there the night before, knowing that all the bands were in town, and I would run around the different floors and just kind of I'd be knocking on the door and, hey, who's this? And be like, oh hey, it's dude from Atheist, man. Hey, how's it going, dude? Hey, how you doing? And I would just run around to the rooms, just knocking on the doors and seeing who would answer. And sometimes I would get like a actual, just somebody passing through and they go, what the hell's your problem? This, that. And then next door is like, hey, it's Alex from Cannibal. Hey, what's up? And then it was Phil from Malevolent and, smoking hash with Kelly from Atheist, and
nice.
just having a blast. And I would just run around to each floor, and I would just do this for hours, just go and visit with the different bands and just hang out. And it was just, back then I felt like it was such a huge community, even though these bands were from New York and Florida and wherever. That Milwaukee Metal Fest, I felt like all kind of brought us together in our community. And I thought that was really cool. And it's not really a funny story, but I really look back at that as really fond memories of just hanging out in those hotels and the hotel and just running around to the different rooms and getting in the elevator and, and well, what floor we want to try now. And, and who we're going to run into. And, it was just that whole time was just a great era and just a great experience. The Milwaukee Metal Fests, like I said, our very first year, I think we played at like 9:15 in the morning, and it was like, hey, 9:15 it started. You get 15 minutes. So we would be on stage trying to play as fast as we could, like we'd speed the song because we wanted to get in our whole demo.
Yeah.
And in 15 minutes, I think the demo clocked in at like 20 or something. So we were never able to get in a full demo set. And right as we're playing that third song, no, cut the lights. All right, you're done. I was like, so. But yeah, our very first year was like 9:15, 9:30. It was real early in the morning. I just said, my guys, I don't even think I can perform that early in the morning. I'm usually not even up yet,
Yeah.
And then as the Metal Fest went on, we started getting later and later time slots. And then I think once it finished, I think we were probably like at a 7 or 8 o'clock time slot, which was great. But yeah, no, those days were really awesome. Just running around and, just shooting the shit with bands. I mean, and like I said, everybody was so in their infancy stages, either with a first record out or a second record and just touring. So yeah, I remember meeting Cannibal Corpse at the Unicorn, and I remember going there. I remember they had this beat up van, and I just remember the doors flew open, and first guy I met was Alex Webster. And I was like, "What's up, dude?" And that dude is so nice, just so nice. I wish I could communicate with him now, but I know, like, I'm sure all of them, they probably get bombarded with thousands of messages per day, but super nice guy. We share a birthday, which I always thought was cool. So I always send him a message on his birthday. I never get a response, but it is what it is. I actually talk, the one guy in that band that I do talk to, besides Rutan now, Rob.
Okay, Rob Barrett.
Rob Barrett. Yeah. And he's actually.
I was going to say, is it because of the Solstice connection or?
I don't know, but I just know that he is very, he writes me back right away every time.
Nice.
Every time. I write him like, hey, Rom, how's it going? Blah, 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 blah. And oh, it's going good. How are you? Okay, good. I even told him, I think last year I said, hey, tell Alex I said happy birthday because he doesn't answer me. And he's like, sure, no problem, But he responds pretty quickly too, which I appreciate that because, I think, and I'm not speaking of anything bad, but sometimes like even, like when you get to like Metallica status or something like that, these guys probably aren't answering their emails back. They're probably not doing anything. And it kind of like, to me, it's kind of like it. I feel like it disconnects you from your fans. Then,
Yeah.
Like with me, I correspond. If you write me, you're usually getting me that writes back, and I don't have a problem with that because I feel like it still keeps me connected with the fans. So, like I said, when you get to that certain level, and I mean, I know it's probably. Overwhelming, some of these guys, they open up their mailbox and it's probably got 1,000 emails. And how do you go through that in a day, So I totally get it. But I guess what I'm saying is I do appreciate the guys that take the time out to respond to me. I appreciate it, not only as a fan, but just as a musician.
Right on. So obviously you've been doing this for decades now. If you could give any advice on a younger musician on what they should do with their band, what advice would it be?
I'd say practice, get to know your material, get to know your gear, and don't, I guess, try not to let things influence you. Try to just be as original as you can. I mean, obviously, I know it's hard to be completely original, especially in today's society when you have so much music floating around. But just try to be original as you can. Try to incorporate on your style and really just get to know your craft, just spend the time. Like a couple of years back, I knew a band in town here and they were just like getting started and they were like, oh, we got to start playing shows every day and we got to start doing this. We got to start doing that. I'm like, well, you got to learn to crawl before you walk. And so I didn't hear the material from them and the material really wasn't that good. And they were around for a few years and then they broke up and they all kind of went their separate ways. But my whole point was with them is I try to help them out and I try to let them know, you got to get to know your craft. You have to, and also the other thing I wanted to say is concentrate on your strengths, not your weaknesses. That would be my advice, because if you have a really good strength and you're not playing to it and you're more worried about the weakness, you know what I'm saying? It's like, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say people shouldn't practice or anything like that, but what I'm saying is concentrate on what you do well and do it well.
Gotcha. That's a very interesting point to make. Well, I'm assuming it is 1:30. I do not, well, 1:30 over in my time. I'm not trying to hold you in case you have to go somewhere.
Nope.
But
if you have another question, shoot.
Another question? All right, let me think.
Sure.
Let me think.
Go for it.
Let me think. Let's see what I have in my notes. Let's see. So, vocal influences, winter tour, any era. Let's see. Suffer for Nothing, Morta Skuld. Hold on, I got this. My apologies.
Don't apologize at all.
My apologies. So actually, you know what? On the winter tour, and obviously on the California tours, and even when you tour Europe, obviously staying healthy is important for a touring band. So do you try to say like, all right, I'm gonna eat healthy on this day and then pig out on this day, or I'm not gonna drink as much on this day and then I'm just gonna get blitzed on this day, or do you try to, like, how do you manage your overall like physical health when you tour?
Not very well. Yeah, it is hard, especially, you're on the road, you're not going to stop and get great meals probably. I mean, and it is fast food no matter where you go, even if you sit down. My thing, this tour, what I wanted to do is I really wanted to, I wanted to take a couple pounds off and this and that and get ready. But unfortunately I got I had some problems with my foot. So I wasn't able to, unfortunately, plan. I also lost my job in the middle of this too, so that really wasn't planned either. Because when you work, you're more active. You're not sitting around all day. So, but yeah, this time around, I definitely have a couple of different things I'm doing. And with the Skeletal Remains thing too, when we went out with them, one day I walked into the green room and I noticed Chris had this, and actually I saw this years ago on a Cannibal video from Corpse Grinder, and I thought, oh wow, I need to look into that, and I never looked into it until we were on tour with Skeletal. And what it is it's just a little vapor. It's like a heat vaporizer, and it just like blows hot. You inhale hot steam, kind of like like if you got like a cold or sinuses.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's made by Vicks or something. It's just a little, like, it's not real big. But I saw him doing that, and I was like, dude, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, man, he's like, when you sing I said, yeah, I know. I said, because I know in 2017, I did have some problems with my voice near the end because I was forcing, sometimes, if you have a PA, and that's a common thing for a lot of singers to do too, is if they have a mic in front of them, if they can't hear themselves, they tend to sing louder and more aggressive. And when you do that, and you're doing that for 10 days, 11 days, that's going to take an effect on your voice. So that was one thing I learned off the 2017 tours. Even if I can't hear myself, let the PA do the work. Let the PA do the work for me. And then I started doing the thing that Chris was doing, the vaporizing thing. And it seems like after you do a set, I was doing it before. So like I was doing it a lot, like when we would be practicing, like in this last year, before I would go to practice, I'd do it. And it seemed to give me a little bit more wind, a little more air. So that I will be doing on this tour. I don't know if I'm gonna do it before I sing, after I sing, whatever. But that is one thing I really want to do to keep the vocal cords healthy. Because you need moisture. You need moisture for your vocal cords. And if if you take like antihistamine, or if you take certain medications, that dries up your vocal cords, and there's nothing you can do. You can't, that happened to me in the studio for Wounds Deeper Than Time. Excuse me. I had like the flu or some allergies, something like that. And I was taking this antihistamines, and I ended up doing 3 songs, and the vocal tracks were just awful. Like I was like, oh my God, like I can't believe this. So we were like, go home, come back next week, don't do any antihistamines. I came back, and like, the vocals were much better. So as far as vocally, that's one thing I'm going to do. The other thing too that I plan on doing a little differently this time, which I wanted to do last tour, but I didn't. I'll be probably doing like vitamin D, vitamins, zinc, vitamin D, with the with everything going around and stuff like that, and you're going to be out and about different people, and that helps your immunity system. So yeah, I'll probably be doing, like I said, the zinc, the vitamin D, and then I have another what's it called? It's just like a veggie pill. It's got like 21 different vegetables in it and stuff like that, and I always felt like that gave me a little burst of energy. So and the big key really to staying healthy, besides the eating and the drinking, and you're absolutely correct, because I've been thinking about that the whole time now for this tour. I'm thinking like, well, am I gonna take those nights where I'm like, hey man, and then it's tough because sometimes you're in a room with your buds, you're hanging out, you're having a good time, and you just want to celebrate and just embrace the moment. So but yeah, I do think there are certain nights I will probably watch myself and try to eat more healthy. I know, like when we do go on the road, we like to take like some lunch meats and stuff like that, so we can, if somebody's hungry, it's like, oh hey, we're not going to stop at a McDonald's every day, we got some lunch, we will make our own sandwiches and stuff like that, and probably stop off and the breakfast thing is always big with us every day, so probably stop off, get breakfast, and then try to sleep. Though sleep is really important too. And that was one thing on the 2017 tour I barely got anything of, and I think that really impacted my voice as well. Was just not getting the proper sleep. So just preparing for that, just earplugs and fans and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Some of us snore.
Yeah.
So got to kind of have that white noise to block that out so you can get some sleep yourself.
For sure. Well, I think that wraps up this interview. I just wanted to say thanks again for speaking to me. Thanks again for speaking to me on Deathwaves Radio, Dave. This was a ton of fun. And
thank you.
Yeah, no worries. And like I said, for those listening to this interview and for those listening to the archive, you can check out Morta Skuld. You can check out Morta Skuld on their East Coast and Midwest tour, which starts on the 16th. And where can they find the tour dates?
The tour dates, you can find them on my page. And I believe they are on the Morta Skuld Facebook page as well.
Sure. All right. So there you go. So there you go. For those curious, check out the Morta Skuld Facebook page, and you will find the tour dates there.
Or Instagram too. I'm sorry, Instagram as well.
And Instagram. Check the Morta Skuld Facebook and Instagram page for the tour dates. And Suffer for Nothing, Peaceville Records 2020. And just wanted to say thanks again, Dave, for doing this interview. I had a total blast talking to you.
Thank you, man. It was my pleasure, dude. We haven't seen each other in a while, so it's definitely good reminiscing and catching up.
I know. October 23rd, Washington, D.C. I will happily be in the crowd singing along, banging my head and moshing.
All right. You know what? And I appreciate that. And I look forward to seeing you. And if anybody wants to buy Suffer for Nothing or Wounds or even our reissues, go to peaceville.com. Help us out. If you can't make the shows or you can't, purchase any merch, we'll definitely have plenty of merch on sale. We have a Suffer for Nothing shirt, and then we have a 1991 Eternal Suffering shirt that we made into a tour shirt. So we'll have those, and then, like I said, we'll have plenty of copies of Suffer for Nothing and Wounds Deeper Than Time and all the reissues. We got brand new patches, stickers, buttons. I mean, so it's we definitely got it stocked up. So I look forward to seeing everybody out there.
Awesome. That's it for this week. Thanks again for listening to Deathwaves on WGMUradio.com. Your voice amplified.